Hey there, pet parent. My guest today is Erin Scott, and I am so excited to bring her to you today for a number of reasons. Erin is the creator of the Believe in Dog podcast, where she shares heart-centered conversations exploring the profound impact that the love of a dog has made in each of her guests' life. Her very first episode, actually I think the very couple of first episodes, she shares her own story as to why how dogs have made such an incredible difference in her life and led her to starting the Believe in Dog podcast. I have to say, it has brought me to tears on more than one occasion, but not bad tears, good tears. The topics on the Believe in Dog podcast range from dog training methods to cutting-edge veterinary research, the impacts of poverty on pet ownership, and every and anything in between. More recently, Erin co-hosts another podcast called the Alternative Dog Moms podcast with Kimberly Gauthier, who we have had on the Pet Parenting Reset multiple times now. The Alternative Dog Moms podcast is perfect for Erin as a self-proclaimed dog health nerd, and she and Kimberly explore what's happening in the fresh food community and the pet industry as a whole. The tagline to the Believe in Dog podcast is, I believe a dog can be a healer, a teacher, and an inspiration. And I really want you to take that to heart as we begin this journey into the interview with Erin Scott. Have you tried training methods that just didn't work? Do you feel that your pet is not getting his or her nutritional needs met? Are illnesses and bad behavior your daily norm? You're going to want to join me on the Pet Parenting Reset, where you'll hear interesting and informative interviews and get solutions to all your pet problems. I'm your host, Jessica L. Fisher. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to finally be meeting you. You are the host, you're the host of the Believe in Dog podcast, but you're also the co-host of the Alternative Dog Moms podcast, which is actually how I found you.
Okay.
So I'd love for you to talk a little bit and tell our listeners what led you, and I've listened to your beginning episodes, so I know this story, but just a quick rundown of how you came to be where you are today and what made you start the Believe in Dog podcast, and what your hopes are for people that listen to it, because I found it to be, I've cried a few times.
I hope in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I have definitely, unexpectedly cried a few times. And this is so silly, even the episode with Billy Hokeman, I was like, why am I crying about this? I think you just have a different spin that you put on things. And there's just so much heartfelt emotion that goes into what you put out into the world. And I think that's what was why am I crying so much?
Well, I hope that comes through, although it's never my goal to make anybody cry. I had a really interesting introduction to dogs. I did not grow up with dogs. I always joke that I was a reluctant dog owner because it was totally my husband's idea. And we were still engaged. We weren't actually married at the time, and that we bought our first house, and he had always wanted a dog, and he had his heart specifically set on wanting a female brindle pit bull. And so we settled on our house on July 1st, many moons ago. And I think on July 4th weekend, I checked our local Humane Society's website, and bam, right there, first page, female brindle pit bull. And so I felt okay, it was kind of meant to be kind of thing. And so that was how, our first dog, Lucy, who is the podcast logo for Believe in Dog, the artwork. And she really changed my life. in a completely just unexpected way. And we had gone through a lot of unexpected loss in our lives the year before we had adopted Lucy. And so we were in, an emotionally like really struggling point. We had unexpectedly lost several people in my husband's family in completely unrelated, ways. And then we bought a house and got engaged and like all these life transitions and things were a little crazy and stressful. And sometimes it was bringing out kind of like the worst of our coping skills when you're under like all of this like stress. And so having Lucy, and then the following year we adopted Kahlua, they were really a bright spot in what was a really hard time in our lives. And sort of over time, I was able to kind of start focusing on like what had been lost. And I was really able to be grateful for each day and look forward to coming home to these dogs. And it really just, completely won my heart over. And, and I started volunteering in Baltimore and just really got immersed into the dog world and like met all these cool people. And then you kind of fast forward to 2018 is when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And around that same time, some friends of mine started doing their own podcast. It was about like dating. It was very silly. It's kind of like dating horror stories and stuff. And it seemed very like doable. And, my husband and I would have these conversations sometimes where we'd talk about, Lucy and Kahlua have both passed on now. We have new dogs in our lives and just how they have gotten us through these hard times. My dog Penny is right next to me right now, and she really helped me through my breast cancer treatment. And, there's sometimes a way that our pets can be there for us in a way that other people can't, even when they mean well, even though when they want to be. There's just something special about the way that our pets like let us be. And I would, have these conversations and I was like, I know all these interesting people. Like, I wonder, like, who's the dog that affected their life, like that inspired them to start this nonprofit organization, that inspired them to start this company. What did they go through, that, really led, to them making this change in the world that's inspired by the love of a dog. And so that was really where the Believe in Dog podcast came from. And I beat breast cancer. I became a breast cancer survivor the same week that I turned 40 years old. And it was kind of like this new chapter, new lease on life. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I'm not somebody who's ever really put myself out into the world like that before. So it was kind of nerve-wracking, but it's just one of the things I'm just most proud of. And I'm just so like just astounded at how this has all gone. And it's just been a great thing.
Yeah, well, congratulations, by the way, for beating breast cancer. Like, that's a big deal. It really is. I mean, it's something that nobody ever wants to hear, and especially as young as you were.
Yeah,
and
I had never had a mammogram before. Like, it was all a complete shock.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, I just turned 40. I could not imagine. And I mean, obviously, like you think about it, you think about what you would do, how things would go. I feel like, okay, you do what you have to do to get through it, but it always makes me think, anytime I think of anything like catastrophic in my life, I'm like, what is going to happen to the pets? Like, am I going to have the energy? Am I going to have the time? Am I going to be physically present? Like that, like it always worries me so much. I'm like, of course I have my husband. He can handle things, but it's like a survive, not thrive mode.
Right.
And especially with my cats, because he's allergic to them. So it's like, well, my cats would survive, but would they really be thriving? Is scary. I mean, congratulations. That's awesome. I'm so glad that that's behind you. I mean, there's always like, you always worry, I'm sure, a little bit, but I'm glad that's for the most part behind you and helped you to get to where you are today, for sure. So with the Believe in Dog podcast, these are stories of how dogs change people's lives, right? And yeah, I think we all have that story, and I don't think we know. A lot of us don't realize like how important it is to tell that story, because our all of our pets, I think, I'm just a very firm believer that all of our pets, no matter how old you were, pets we had in the past, pets that we haven't had yet come into our lives, they all come into our lives for a reason, and it's generally to teach us something. And hopefully we're there for it, and we do learn what we're supposed to learn from it.
Right.
I know, like, one of my cats, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I know, well, I live on this level of like, there's always something new to learn. I'm striving to continue to learn new things, but I have this one cat that is just like a constant in my face reminder of like, you have so much more to learn.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
And I really love the tagline that you have for that. I hope, I don't know if I got this right. I'm going to at least paraphrase. I believe a dog can be a healer, a teacher, and an inspiration. Is that right?
Yeah.
See, just even saying that makes me like, I want to tear up because I'm remembering like listening to some of these episodes. I really hope people do go back and like start from the beginning. I know a lot of podcasts are like, well, you can, these are different stories. You can pick up wherever you want. And I think that's true of your podcast, but like, I always like to start at the beginning and like binge a podcast that I find. And I think that even if you skip around on the episodes of Believe in Dog, I think going back to your first episode or two is like, you need to do that to really like understand what this podcast is all about and why you want to keep listening to it. And I just want to say thank you so much for putting that into the world. And I know you said how hard it was for you. And it's kind of led you, a few years later, you also have the Alternative Dog Moms podcast with Kimberly Gauthier, who I've had on the show a couple of times now. She's incredible. And
Yeah.
I don't know where. I think she somehow has a few extra hours in her day than the rest of us do.
To get everything done.
Right? So how did that come about? And tell me a little bit about that podcast.
Sure. So I couldn't even tell you how long ago it was that I started following Kimberly online. I mean, it has to go back to when I had Lucy and Kahlua, our first dogs, because we first started feeding raw, like unbeknownst to us, it was about a year and a half like left before they both passed, or about 2 years, I guess, with Lucy. And, there's not a lot, especially at that time, going back to 2014, I think, there wasn't a lot of people talking about feeding raw online. And especially as Lucy and Kahlua, of course, they were both, 12, 13 years old at that time. They both started having some different health issues. And I was trying to read about like how their diet could impact their health issues, and so I'm sure that's how I somehow stumbled upon Kimberly, And so she's just kind of always been on my radar, and, following her on social media and, leaving comments. And then when I started the Believe in Dog podcast, I had started with this list of like, I don't know, 50 people or something who I'm like, I've got to talk to these people. And of course she was on that list. She's one of the earlier episodes now. And we just kind of had a great rapport and had a good time talking and, following each other on social media. And she was always very like encouraging towards me. And so I think it was around this time last year, like right after the first of the year, she had just put a post up on Instagram like, hey, I think I want to do a podcast to talk about like the fresh feeding and alternative health stuff. Is anybody interested? And I'm looking around like, is this like a sign from the world, from the universe? Like, and I'm like messaging her right away, like, yes, oh my God, yes, I'd love to do that. And, so, we just had like a couple calls and kind of, knocked out like kind of what our vision would be, to both have guests as well as, just kind of talk about like what's going on with our dogs, are they having health issues? What are we doing about those health issues? Kind of like, what's our approach? And then like, what are we learning? What are we seeing online? Like kind of that's newsworthy in the, community that we follow. And, what are like the events we're going to? Who are the new people on our radar, new podcasts or blogs or, to just kind of chat, share information, but also get to talk to, cool people who are doing new and interesting and exciting things that everybody should know about. So I think it's a good mix.
Yeah, for sure. I think I didn't quite know that about you. It's so funny how like you meet people and your lives like overlap and you don't know it, because I think it was definitely 2013 that I started playing around with my dog and cat's food, and I was like cooking food. I had no idea what I was doing. So I was adding it to their kibble because I'm like, I know enough to know I don't know what I'm doing. Right. And it didn't take us too terribly long to get from that to like, okay, found Dr. Judy, I found her pup loaf, and I found Kimberly, and I found her, and that led me to Dr. Karen and Rodney and all these other places. So I feel like I found Kimberly like right there at the beginning, just like you did, and started switching my dogs over to raw, probably in the same like 2014-ish year. And so that's so interesting to me when you meet people and you're like, how have we not met before? Because we're all doing like the same things, but like I know I'm like in my own little bubble, and like I have to do so much better with sharing my personal life online. But yeah, both of the podcasts are incredible. I'm super excited for you, and I mean with both of the podcasts, but especially like I really, really love like the banter between two like-minded people, and having someone there to like bounce information off of and bounce ideas off of, and you may not always 100% agree, and that's okay. And I think that makes for some of like the best episodes. So that's another reason why I really, really like the Alternative Dog Moms podcast. So there's 2 podcasts now that people need to go, and if you're not already following them, make sure you follow them. And yeah, so there is one other thing that you have available to people, and I have been fortunate enough to look over it, and it's so incredible. And I know that you have it available for people to download with a small fee. Like, I mean, come on, guys, like, support a girl, right? And so I will have the link in the show notes for that. But you guys, this is a bundle that you're going to get like journaling pages, basically. And these journaling pages are to help you. And I know, like, I've talked to my audience about journaling before, specifically with like other people that come on the podcast, because it's like so important. Like I know for sure I talked about it with Angela Ardolino. We were like, you need to be journaling what is going on with your dog, especially if they are having issues going on. And having a template for like what you need to be journaling about can be so helpful for most pet parents. Because I think most pet parents are like, you need to journal what's going on with your dog. And they're like, okay. And they just like start writing like, oh, they were happy today and we went for a walk, and oh, they had diarrhea today. And like, there's so much more that we need to know. And that your health,
when you have a health issue.
Oh my gosh, right? So this template is incredibly amazing. And then you also have the veterinarian, like the checklist for when you're going to be going to the veterinarian. I know I used to be like this, where I would have a bunch of questions, and stupidly, I kept them all in my head. And by the time I got to the vet's office, I was like, my vet's talking a mile a minute, and I'm like, okay, yeah, thanks. And wouldn't ask anything I needed to ask. So tell me like, what made you create this? And you can probably do a little bit better justice to what it actually is.
So I call it the Dog Health Journal, and I'm working to get it to be like a physical journal that, but it's taking me shockingly long period of time to figure that out, to transition it. So right now it's just a digital download. And so when you get the bundle, because you can buy the kind of like the parts of it separately too. But yeah, you can do it all in the bundle and like save $1 or $2. And so, yeah, so there's like the daily pages, and, like Penny has been battling this like double UTI. It's been crazy.
Oh, no.
So I have like this whole system of like, she needs to get a probiotic at 6 a.m. She has to get her antibiotics at 8:30 in the morning. She has to get her thyroid pill at 4 p.m. So it helps you kind of plan out like, when do they need meals? When do they need supplements? When do they need medications? And, and it's all very like, customizable for what your dog has going on. And, like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm going to increase her CBD and I want to see if that makes a difference. And so I can like make a note of like, oh, this is the day that I, doubled the CBD amount, and, was she too tired? And so there's like spaces to help you track like things like pee and poop and water intake, because like Penny's had increased water intake recently. And then to, like, let's say you're dealing with like a wound issue, there's kind of like a prompt to remind you to like take a photo of that, because I feel like all of this is designed out of lessons I've learned the hard way in almost 20 years of being a dog mom. And so it's like, I want to be able to I want to take a photo of something at the same time every day, and then be able to track like over the course of the week. Does it look better? Does it look worse? Do I need to go back to the vet? Are they limping? And I need to get a video of this because it's intermittent and I know they're not going to do it when I take them to the vet. So I try to remind myself about a video. So I try to have different prompts, for whatever could possibly be going on in your, pet's health life. And then, and then there's the vet visit pages, which again, all of this is from things I've learned the hard way. I forgot to get a refill. I forgot to ask questions. And so it'll prompt you to, do all those things, ask all those things, make sure you're getting copies of like your pet's blood work or any x-rays or anything. Cause I think it's really important to track this. Like when we go home and all we get is like this printout of like the payment, like what they charged us for everything. And then like a year from now, you're like, what even was that? And so, and then there's another little handout on kind of like how to keep track of your pet's medical records and, get like a folder or a binder going. And then I also have like a little booklet in there too of like the things to look for. So hopefully the journal will help you keep track of all these things, like changes in their water intake, changes in their poop habits. And I even give you like some different bullet points of like, well, what are you looking for? And, and one of, I think the biggest things is like a change in their routine, like my guy Nino, obsessed with chasing his ball. If there's ever a day where he doesn't want to chase the ball, like I know something's wrong, Penny always wants to go for a car ride. If there's ever a day where she doesn't want to go on the car ride, I know something's wrong. And so I think that's like one of the most important things that we can be tracking is just like any changes in our pet. And so hopefully this gives everybody a really great way to do that.
Yeah, it is so important for their health. And I know, like, as a dog trainer, I have always encouraged my clients to do this with their training as well. Like, what did you train today? How long did you train? How is your dog progressing? How are you progressing? Because quite honestly, dog training is people training.
Yes.
I don't really want to hear that, but like, I don't train dogs, I train people. But, to like track their progress, because I can show up a week or 2 weeks later and they're like, oh yeah, no, nothing has changed. And I'm interacting with the dog and I'm like, absolutely. Like there's so much change that I've seen going on. But if you're not like journaling it and you're not tracking it, you're not noticing the changes because they're happening like right in front of you and you take them for granted.
Yeah.
So it's really important. And I really like, I like the pages. I like the bundle, how you bundle it all together. And there is a lot of instruction that you provide with it, which is, I think, where the real value lies. It is like what you really should be looking for and like what questions should you be asking at the vet, like really making you think about being on top of parenting your dog or your cat. I think it could be pretty interchangeable with dogs and cats. So
I've never had a cat, so I don't want to speak to that.
Oh, I always thought I was a cat person until I had a dog. I grew up with dogs, but not like the way I have dogs now. Like everybody I knew and my stepdad had hunting dogs, so they didn't even live indoors, and it was like a very different, it never sat right with me. So I was like, I didn't know that you should treat dogs differently. So I didn't want a dog because I didn't want to treat a dog that way. It was, there's all these things that like shape you growing up. And it just always bothered me so much how those dogs were treated. And I was like, well, I guess I don't want a dog. But now that I have dogs, I'm like, I can't choose. I think dogs are easier than cats.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Most people I know, when I tell people, like I happened to say that, I think we were live with Jay and Adrian one day, the two crazy cat ladies, and I was like, oh, dogs are so much easier. They're like, what? You can't say that. I'm like, absolutely. Dogs are so much easier than cats.
Like I would totally have a cat, but all of our dogs have been like very like prey drive kind of dogs, and so I just always felt like I don't think that's the best fit for our house.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. My mom had a dog, or has a dog, had a cat, and she had the hardest time. He has the highest prey drive I've ever seen in a dog, like literally ever. And she had a really hard, like she had to keep her cat in a section of the house she wouldn't allow her dog in. And yeah, that's a whole thing, but
yeah,
I get it. I understand that totally. Well, I'm just so thrilled that you came on today to tell people about your story, about your podcast. I really hope people go download them now and start following, because I don't think we can ever get enough information. I'm one of those people that it's like, I could never like pick a person and get information from them. Like I want to get information from like everybody I possibly can. Unless you just totally don't vibe with me, then I'm like, okay, I'll see you later. But I want to get information from everywhere I totally possibly can, because you never know, like you're going to hear something that's going to trigger your brain and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like, and you never know where you're going to hear that from. So I love that, like, you're just putting so much good out into the world. And I love hearing all the stories about people and their dogs and how their dogs changed their lives. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. I'm so excited we got to do this. And, I also think like I'm somebody who I'll like learn and retain information better if there's like a story behind it. Cause sometimes, I think it's a good mix of like, getting information for pet parents, in addition to the story. And so like, for some reason, I think it helps me like stick in my head better when I'm like, oh, that was the girl who does physical therapy for dogs and she said XYZ and I remember because of this. And, so hopefully people can learn and be entertained at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that's the perfect podcast, right? That's the perfect recipe. Well, thank you so much, Erin. Where can people find you, follow you? Obviously the podcast, but is there anywhere else?
Sure. I'm on Instagram at Believe in Dog Podcast. It has underscores between each word. And I'm also on Facebook, Believe in Dog Podcast, but I don't know. I seem to get more activity on Instagram, so I'm there more.
Yeah, I hear you on that. On that. Facebook is like really, I feel like Facebook is really dying out for pages. So I try to put more energy in Instagram too. So yeah. I hear you. Well, I do hope everybody goes and downloads these podcasts. It's on everywhere, right? Apple, Spotify, Google, all the places.
All the places. Pick your favorite. Follow, download. I think you should start from the beginning with Believe in Dog, and just go from there. I'm a binger, so if you're a binger, start at the beginning. I feel like it has like evolved some, sometimes I'm like, oh, and I go back.
Oh, it's always like that. Girl, oh my gosh. I cringe when I see like any of my videos on YouTube, but the old ones, the ones that are like 7 years old, I'm like, please don't go watch that. Please, I beg of you. No, I get it. So yes, follow Erin, listen to the podcast, And I don't know, who knows, maybe you will be inspired to do something incredibly amazing that you wind up on the Believe in Dog podcast one day. Thank you again, Erin. I appreciate it. And make sure you guys give your pets some extra love from both me and Erin today. And I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Make sure that you're following the show so you never miss an episode. And please take a moment to rate the show on your podcast app. I'd also love it if you'd share this podcast with your friends and family so that they can benefit from the information to help their pets live long, happy lives too. Don't forget to take advantage of this special discount as a listener today and get access to over 100 online videos and my online dog training, The Furry Family Coach. Just go to thefurryfamilycoach.com and use code PODCAST at checkout to get your first month for only $7. That's thefurryfamilycoach.com and use code PODCAST at checkout to get your first month for only $7. I can't wait to have you join and see you on the inside.